Algebra 1 students, welcome to your 8.5 notes. Today we're going to work on factoring when we have a trinomial in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. The big idea is that many trinomials can be written as the product of two binomials. Our notes here do have a process. There is set up the groupings with consideration for the sign, consider the factors of the constant, pick the factors with the desired sum or difference, and then place the factors into the groupings. So basically, they have done that for you in this setup of this trinomial. So they have basically shown you that we're going to use 3 and 4 to multiply together to get 12, and when you add 3 and 4 together, you end up with 7. And so that is how you're going to know to use 3 and 4, because you could use 12 times 1, you could use 2 times 6, and then you can also use 3 times 4 to get to 12 as a product. But we have to use the correct numbers because this 7 here tells us which ones are the accurate ones to use. Alright, here we go. So in this particular trinomial, we are going to know that we are going to have two positive numbers here because we have a positive sign here and we have a positive sign here. So in order to get a positive, you either have to have two positives multiplied together or you have to have two negatives multiplied together. Well, if it was two negatives multiplied together, we would have a negative number here. So that's how we know that this one is going to have two positive numbers. So let's go ahead and set up what we're going to use here. And then let's figure out which numbers we want. So we have a 12 sitting there. What numbers can we multiply together to get 12? Well, we can multiply 1 and 12 together. We can multiply 6 and 2. We can multiply 3 and 4. And then we're going to start going back the other direction. We could do 4 and 3. We could do 2 and 6. And then we could do 12 and 1. So to find two of them where their sum equals that second term there, we need to use 6 and 2. Doesn't really matter which order we put these in this particular case. So let's go ahead and plug those in, and we're done. Alright, for number 2, let's go ahead and set up our product of binomials again. We want to use two positive numbers in this particular case again, because we have a positive and we have a positive. So that tells us that that both of these are going to be positive numbers that we're going to use here. So let's set up what we're going to have as our two binomials there, and then let's figure out what numbers we can multiply together to get to 30. So the first set of numbers that I can think of would be 1 and 30. Then we could do 10 times 3. Then we could do 5 times 6. We could also do 6 times 5. We could do 3 times 10. And we could do 30 times 1. But when I got to 5 and 6, figured out which ones we're going to have. So again, it doesn't matter which order we put them in this particular case. So we can go ahead and plug in 5 and 6, and then on that one we're done. Here we go for number 3. Let's go ahead and set up our binomials that we're going to use. They're both going to be positive because we've got two positive numbers, and in this case I think I see a set of numbers we're going to use rather quickly, because when we set up our numbers that can multiply together to get 7, we can use 1 and 7. I found my answer pretty quick on that one. 1 and 7 add together to be 8. So we can go ahead and plug those in, and we're done with that one. On to the next one. Here we go. We're going to check out some groups where we're going to have two negative numbers. How do we know that? We have a positive sign here, so when we multiply two negative numbers together, we're going to end up with a positive. And the way that we know they're going to be negative is because we've got a negative sign right here. So that's how we know that we're going to have two negative numbers inside of our instead of our binomials here. So let's go ahead and set that up. Now we have to figure out what we can multiply together to receive 8. So we could do 1 and 8. We could do 2 times 4. Then we could do 4 times 2. Then we could do 1 times 8. So I see an answer here. We've got -2 and -4 that we can multiply together to get positive 8. Again, in this case, it doesn't matter which order they go in because they're both negative. But if we were to multiply this out, we would be able to check our answer. So let's actually try that. Let's use the distributive property to do it too. So let's do x times x minus 4, and then let's do a -2 times x minus 4. Let's see what happens. We're going to get an x squared. We're going to get a -4x. Okay, when we add those two together, we end up with our initial problem. So that's one way to check your answer if you ever are unsure of yourself. All right, here we go. A number 5. The number gets a little bit bigger, but I think we can handle it. I see that we're going to have 2 negative numbers again. We've got a negative sign to begin with, and then we have a positive sign here. So we know we're going to have 2 numbers that are negative, because 2 numbers multiplied together that are negative are going to give us a positive product, and then when we add them together, we're going to be negative. So I immediately see a couple of numbers that'll work pretty well. It's -10 and -5. We multiply that out, you'll get the product, which will equal the trinomial there. Here we go for number 6. This one's going to have 2 negative numbers again. I think you can see that. What numbers are we going to use here? Items that can multiply together to get 14, I see that it could be a 7 and a 2. That would add together to be 9, and it would give you the product of 14. So I think the big thing on this particular page was to notice that when you have a negative sign and then a positive sign, you're going to have 2 negative numbers in your binomials that we're going to multiply together. Okay, so number 7 has a negative product and it's got a positive sum. What that tells us is we're going to have a negative in the binomial, and then we're also going to have another binomial that has a positive. And so in this particular case, it is going to matter which sign we put which number with, because we have to make sure that we get to a positive 5 when we add those two together. So I do want to use 2 and 7, because when we multiply 2 together, or 2 times 7, we're going to get 14. And it'll matter which one the 2 goes with and which one the 7 goes with. In this case, the 7 is going to be positive, and the 2 is going to be negative. So if you were to switch that around, we would have a different number or a different trinomial altogether. So it does matter which sign you put the numbers with. So here we go with number 8. We have a negative number here in the product that we're going to get. And then in our sum, we're going to have a positive number. So in this one, we're going to also have another set of binomials where we've got a positive and a negative. Now it doesn't matter which one you put first or which one you put last. What matters is that you put the correct number with the correct sign. So in this one, I know that if we multiply 3 times 7, we'll get the product of 21. And so we want the 7 to be positive because it's the larger number, and then when we subtract 3 from 7, we end up with a positive 4. So that's how we know which binomial to put which number with. Why don't you guys do this? Why don't you pause the video, try number 9 and number 10 on your own. I bet you can handle them. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and did your work on your own, but if you didn't, here are your answers. You should have had x plus 3 an x minus 5 as your two binomials for number 9. And for number 10, you should have had x plus 4 and x minus 9. I think that you'll find that this particular section will be pretty fun, and it'll be enjoyable, and we will see you in class ready to work. Have a fabulous day.